In the last episode of this series documenting the construction of my cowboy boots by legendary bootmaker Lee Miller of Texas Traditions, we watched Lee attach the outsoles to the bottom of the boots using a combination of stitching and wooden pegging. These methods are just two of many that date back to the origins of the cowboy boot itself. In today's video, we see Lee reach the very final stage before completing the boots, which is building the iconic Western cowboy heel and finishing the outsoles. So join me as we step back inside Lee's workshop to see him continue making these incredible boots. So here we are, Lee, back in the workshop. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
And I guess talk a little bit about where we are today and what we have in store.
Yeah, well, day 5 is me after putting on the soles and wooden pegging. Day 5 is going to be building the heels. And in a few hours after stacking every lift and shaping it, I'll have the rubber caps on, shaping the heel, getting all the final hand sanding done. And by the afternoon, we'll have all the stains and dyes and inks on, and I'll be finishing. Yeah. So these boots, by the end of the day, will be in, the lasts will be pulled, the wooden pegs will be sanded internally, and then the tops will be in the, in the wooden trees to go ahead and shape them.
Yeah. So this is really the final stretch. I mean, the outsoles have been put on, yeah. They've been sewn and pegged, which is what we saw yesterday.
Yes.
And then now is building that iconic Western cowboy boot heel.
Yeah, and every customer wants a different heel style, and this is a typical number 8 heel, and you can see how every lift was gone ahead and placed on there and shaped and sanded, and so your heel will be a little bit lower than this, but it's still going to have that beautiful pitch. Yeah. And
yeah, I mean the cowboy boot heel is one of the most iconic elements, and certainly one that really dramatically differentiates it from, say, a West End bespoke shoe.
Yeah, it's a very, as you said, Kirby, it's very iconic. It's got that beautiful pitch. It's not, this is a little bit taller than standard, but still within a normal height.
Okay.
And so this would be, we would classify this as a number 8. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so the cowboy boot heel does make you walk a little bit different, makes you a little bit taller. I think it gives you more confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, as you move through the day and you're met with all these challenges, if you're wearing this heel, you can handle it.
You can handle it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And that's really, it's style, but it's also, it does give you an inner confidence that you're wearing something, just making you a little taller, a little bit more apt to handle what the day throws you.
Yeah. And especially in that pair of Lee Miller boots, right?
Well, we put a lot of care into making our boots, and it's something very personal that we do an exceptional job and do nothing but the finest methods that we know and just make an elegant silhouette. And you can see this boot has just an elegant silhouette. This boot was made in 1994.
Really?
Here. And this is a beautiful 1/2-inch box toe, but it's the silhouette. That's really what we're looking for.
And this is another beautiful,
silhouette.
Elegant pair of boots. I mean, just with the stitching on the top, right?
Yeah.
You get the Texas in the back.
Yeah. This guy was originally from Germany, loved cowboy boots, settled here in Austin, and I think this might have been his first pair we made him. But just a beautiful boot.
What a beautiful pair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, let's get at it then.
Okay, thanks, Kirby. So the first piece on building a shoe or a boot is called the rand piece, and there's different ways to do it, and you'll see that in the shoemaking world and in the bootmaking world. And this is just the way I chose to do it. I feel it works well, and it's easy enough to do. So you put the lift on, and then I'm going to go ahead and just rough trim it. Then we'll go ahead and level it. This is just to go ahead and to just tighten it up, make sure that it's nice, there's no gaps. But I'm building the heel bigger than I actually need it because I'm going to be going ahead and shaping it later. So I'm not trying to do much in the way of precision at this point. But this is where I'm at. I'm going to do a little sanding, and then we'll go to level the second lift. to build the heel stacks, I'm going to be cutting every lift out out of a piece of leather. It's 11-12 iron. And we'll use this 5-in-1 just to cut every lift out. And then the lifts are going to be run through a splitter to go ahead and to make sure that each lift is a uniform thickness. This is a leather splitter. It's very old, as you can see. And I'm just going to use it to go ahead and to get every lift. And then this is what I took off, just that little bit amount, see? So every lift will be this thickness. It'll all be uniform. The sander's just going to go ahead and buff the grain off so I can cement it. So there's one that's been done and one that needs to be done. And here we go. I'm putting this on a little bit longer than I really need, and that's for a reason. Now we'll do some shaping. So this is a saddle maker's tool, and I'm just using it in this way to try and determine the length of the heel. So it's slightly less than 1/3 of the overall length. This is just for a standard heel. And if you were to look at it, the front of the heel, or the breast, as we call it, is about 1/2 inch in front of the lateral side seam. So we use the lateral side seam as a reference point. We want about 1/2 inch in front of it. That's a standard heel. So this is where the actual heel will be. All of this will be cut away. After selecting the size of the lifts that I'm going to be cutting out, I'm just going to go through and, out of my hard leather, cut out some additional lifts. These will all be run through the splitter to make sure that everyone is uniform in thickness. So you can buy a heel stack already made, but I prefer just to do it myself. It's much nicer. And that's the whole point of this, just to do a good job. Using good materials. So at this point, I've got to clean up the rand, and because everything is based on the rand, I've got to get that cleaned up nice and level and pretty. And so I'm going to be using, as I said earlier, this beautiful German welt knife and Massachusetts rand file, and then an English rand file. So these are the three things I'm going to be using, and a little bit of water. Everything is based on the rand. We're measuring off the rand, so very carefully I'm just going to go ahead and get this level. You can see how it's cleaning it up. Just get a visual, find out any irregular spots. That's a high spot there and there. Okay, a little bit of water. And then this old vintage tool. And a little bit more water. And then we'll use a different rand file just to give it a little bit more refinement. This is an English rand file. Needs a little bit more work right here, but you can see it's starting to look nice. I'm going to be going back and repeating this later on before I finally finish the boots, but for right now, you can see the difference between the two. This is the rand. The top of the rand. What I've done is I've cleaned it up and made it level. So this one is unfinished and this one is more finished. I'm going to go back and clean it up a little bit more before I'm done. But at this point it's level and I can measure off of it. With the template, I've gone ahead and just done a little drawing of what I might want to do for shaping the heel. So let's shape it now, okay? I'm going to be nailing the heel. And there's different ways to do this. Some makers will go ahead and wooden peg each lift. Some makers will wooden peg each lift and then just nail it. There's also some makers that use machinery. These nails are American shoe nails, and they come in different sizes. There is no head. So they're thinner at the bottom and they get progressively bigger. They're square. So these nails that I'm going to be putting in here are not going to go all the way through. They're not going to come into contact with the person's heel. I'm going to go ahead and very carefully use the sizes that will keep it away from the person's foot. But I'm going to get some compression when I use these. And that's what I'm looking for. So I've overbuilt the heel, meaning I've made it taller than I really want it to be. And then after I put these American shoe nails in, I'm going to go ahead and re-level the heel, getting it right to the correct height. So how many am I putting in? There's 8 and 3. There's 11 nails. So these are all 1 inch long, and then we'll jump to a longer nail for the back. So these are the only nails in the boot. And so you can hear it. I'm going by the sound. I don't want to get it too deep. So what I did is I cut off the excess. But you can hear it, you can feel it when it gets in deep enough. So there it is, right there. So those are long enough. So we'll go ahead and nail them, hammer it. Now we're going to countersink those nails with this nail set. There it is. Every bootmaker has their own way of doing this step. Every shoemaker has their own way of doing this step. This is just the way that I think it should be done, but there are many other ways of doing it. And so the maker determines how they want to do it. At this point, I'm going to be trimming the sole with this trimmer head and giving it a more finished look. Right now it's just very rough cut. So this will make it look beautiful. It's a spinning tool that's used to trim it, give it a nice bead, nice finished look. So when it comes to this point where we're trimming the sole, we have a West Texas welt, which is a wide welt, or we have a narrow welt, which is a very dressy look, or we'll have a standard welt. So we really do 3 different widths in terms of trimming. On this particular pair, I'm going to be doing a very tailored narrow welt. But some customers, like Lyle, do prefer a wide welt because it acts like it's a little bit more dramatic statement with a wide welt, which we call a West Texas welt. Just because to me, a boot from West Texas has a more utilitarian look to it. So we refer to it as a West Texas welt. After doing a rough sanding of the heel to get the shapes the same, to get the correct pitch in the back and the correct look from the bottom, now I'll go with a knife, and a sharp knife, and I'll trim the excess leather out in the front to create the breast. Once that's done, I'll return to the machine, do some more sanding. I'll sit back down again and do some more hand sanding, and they'll be ready for the dye and the ink and the staining. Yeah, this is the part where you always want to make sure, Kirby, that you cut away from the vamp, not into the vamp. Does that make sense? If I go the other way, I run the risk of slipping. So you always cut to the middle, from the edge to the middle. After this is dry, I'm going to be burnishing it and brushing it, and then hand burnishing it. So it'll be a combination of different ways to finish it. So the last bit will be done by hand burnishing. So every part will be, I'll use my finger after to spread the ink so that I don't have any lumps, nice and smooth, better penetration. Once the ink is applied, I'll wait a half an hour before I start burnishing to give it a chance to dry. A wet sponge, not too wet. And then with my hand, glazing it. By friction, pulling it towards me, water is helping me seal the pores of the leather, hence the use of the word glazing, to seal the pores, to make it smooth. While that's drying, I'm going to do a little decorative marks in the shank, and then once that's dry, I'll bottom stain this product. This is Phoebing's 228 bottom stain, 3 coats. Gives it a nice look. So with this little tool, I'm going to go ahead and mark the shank. This is just a decorative mark, just to show that with care somebody has done this. It's kind of funny because everything that I do, I've learned from somebody. And this came from a guy who was here from Japan for 5 years. And he was here to learn how to make boots. But he was the one who showed me this. So every time I do it, I think of him. He's back in Japan now. It's just a little touch, just to make it look pretty. The bottom has been sealed with water, and I've glazed it with my hand. So now I'm going to apply 3 coats of this bottom stain. And there's many ways to finish the bottom. This is just one way that I like. Some people use shoe polish, and you can do that. But I think that this is a little nicer. But It does a wonderful job. So with a circular motion, we'll put on one coat. And then once again, use your hand just to glaze it. And we're going to let that dry. We'll do the same thing to the mate. This is still a little bit wet. I want to let that dry a little bit more. But we'll do 3 coats, and then last coat, I'll be brushing it and ragging it. And it'll really look golden and beautiful. You can do more than 3 coats. You could do 6 coats. The more you put on, the darker it gets, the more golden it looks. But let's go ahead and do another coat. And you do it in a swirling motion so you don't get any streaks. So you see it's starting to look a little bit more finished now, more golden. This is still a little bit wet, so I'm going to wait to do that. So while it's drying, I can move on to this. After all of the work that I've done, now the finishing part is simply just to rub all the hardware. This is really important, just to go ahead and make sure that it shines nicely and there's no imperfections. And so this final rubbing will just improve the finish. And you can see how it really is waking up. This is still a little bit wet. See how dark it is? So it'll dry clearer, but this is done. I'm going to do the same thing to the mate, and then it's time to pull the lass. Now the lass is ready to be pulled out. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the stand and break it, and then with a hook, I'm going to pull the last out. So let's break it. Then reach down inside with a hook, and let's pull it out. There it is. Check the toe, check the heavy counter. I haven't put my hand inside yet, but let's take a look. Pegs are a little bit up, and there's no nails at all. So there's one. Beautiful. Change the angle and use it for the forepart. Okay, we're done with that tool. Smooth it out inside with a piece of smoother sandpaper, and these will be ready to tree. These trees will just shape the top. make it look beautiful. Okay, and let's find a wedge. We'll do we'll see what kind of wedge we want. Let's see, we want our lucky 8. Okay, so lucky 8. We're looking for a measurement of 15.5. That's not going to do it, so let's get a bigger one. Okay. These wedges, we'll adjust it. So a leg measurement of 15.5. Nope, need a little bit more. So let's get a bigger wedge. That's it. Okay, and check. We want 15.5. 15.25. $15.5, and we'll check the bottom. Beautiful. Okay, and this is just to make them look pretty. We'll stretch them. That's done. So this is going to dry overnight, and in the morning we'll clean it up and shine them and make them look beautiful. Ready to wear.
One of the things, just throughout this time together, I've actually seen firsthand the customers bringing boots back into the shop that they've worn for 20 or 30 years.
Exactly, yeah. Smooth Ostrich is incredibly durable, beautiful Italian kangaroo tops. This boot's going to last a long time.
Yeah, here we go. Pretty exciting. And one of the big challenges with the boot, of course, is that there's no laces, right? So you've got to be able to get the foot in, right? But it can't be too loose that the heel slips out.
That's correct, yeah. And then you can't lace it, so they need to fit.